In the heart of downtown Chicago, traffic bustled and horns blared through the morning rush. The sun pierced through the high-rise buildings, and the city stirred with life. Among the crowd was a well-dressed black man named Malik Carter, walking calmly down Monroe Street with a black leather briefcase in one hand and his phone in the other. To any onlooker, he looked like any other professional headed to work. But behind his composed expression was a mind racing through case strategies, deadlines, and an important meeting with a federal judge scheduled that morning. Malik was a successful attorney, Harvard-educated partner at a prestigious law firm, and a rising legal powerhouse known for winning civil rights cases. His calm voice and sharp mind had brought justice to many who had been wronged. But none of that mattered on this particular morning. As Malik stepped out of a cafe with a hot cup of coffee, he noticed flashing blue lights pull up behind him. Two white police officers jumped out of the car and approached him quickly. Confused, Malik paused, thinking perhaps there was an accident nearby. He stepped aside, giving them space. But instead, one of the officers shouted, "Hey, hands where I can see them." Startled, Malik dropped his coffee and slowly raised his hands. "Officers, is there a problem?" "You fit the description of a suspect who just robbed a store 2 blocks away," the taller officer said, grabbing Malik's wrist. Malik's eyes widened. "That can't be right. I've been on a call with a client for the last 30 minutes. Check my phone. I just picked up coffee. There are cameras in the shop." The second officer didn't listen. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." "Sir, I am not resisting, but I think this is a mistake," Malik said calmly. People nearby started filming with their phones. Some whispered. Others watched silently. Still, the officers handcuffed him, ignoring his words, and pushed him toward the police cruiser. Malik didn't resist. He knew the law better than most. He had fought too many cases just like this, but now he was living it. Inside the car, Malik's phone buzzed repeatedly. His assistant, his law firm, and even the courthouse were calling, waiting for him to arrive. But all he could do was sit in silence, staring through the cage of the police vehicle, wondering how things had turned so wrong in mere minutes. Back at the precinct, the officers brought Malik in, ignoring his ID, credentials, and briefcase. "We'll sort this out later," one of them said. Malik tried again. "I am an attorney, and I demand to speak to my legal representative." But the officers laughed. "Yeah, and I'm the president." Hours passed. Malik sat on a cold bench, still cuffed, his wrists aching. Finally, a supervising officer walked in and glanced at the file, then at Malik. He did a double take. You're Malik Carter." "Yes, I've been trying to tell you that all morning," Malik said, tired but still calm. "And I had a court appointment with Judge Salinas 2 hours ago." The supervisor's face paled. "Get him out of those cuffs. Now." The officers scrambled. Someone ran to retrieve his briefcase and phone. Another began apologizing. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Carter. It was a case of mistaken identity." "I know," Malik replied sharply. "And now your department is going to have a very real civil rights lawsuit on their hands." The room went quiet. Just then, Malik's phone rang. It was the judge's clerk. "Mr. Carter, are you okay? We've been waiting. Should we reschedule?" "No," Malik said, standing tall. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. He turned to the stunned officers. "Thank you for your hospitality," he said, his voice calm but powerful. "Now watch what happens when you assume someone's character based on their color." He walked out, leaving behind silence and shame. The police station door swung open as Malik Carter stepped out, no longer in handcuffs, but his pride bruised and suit slightly wrinkled from hours in a holding cell. The same officers who had wrongly arrested him stood frozen near the desk, watching him with unease and quiet embarrassment. They didn't expect to arrest a man whose name echoed in legal circles as a defender of justice. Malik didn't say a word to them. His silence spoke louder than anger ever could. Outside, his assistant, Jordan, had just arrived in a black Mercedes, visibly anxious. "Malik, I've been trying to reach you for hours," Jordan said, stepping out quickly. "Are you okay?" "What happened?" "I got arrested for being black." That's all the explanation they needed, Malik replied with a calm but steely voice. Jordan's mouth opened in disbelief, then closed as he clenched the steering wheel harder. "Do we reschedule the court?" "No," Malik said, sliding into the passenger seat. "I'm still arguing that motion. We don't let ignorance dictate our timeline." Jordan drove in silence. Malik closed his eyes for a moment, gathering his thoughts. By the time they reached the towering courthouse, his posture had straightened, and his presence commanded attention. Inside courtroom 5B, Judge Salinas was just about to call a recess when the double doors opened. Heads turned as Malik entered. He didn't walk in like a man who had been humiliated that morning. He walked in like a man who was about to change the world. "Mr. Carter," Judge Salinas said from the bench, pausing mid-sentence, "we were concerned." "I apologize for the delay, Your Honor," Malik said, placing his briefcase down and pulling out a stack of documents with perfect composure. "But I'm here and ready to proceed." The opposing counsel, a well-paid defense attorney representing a large corporation, gave a smug smirk. "If you're not too shaken from your adventure," he muttered under his breath. Malik glanced up. "No more shaken than your client will be after this hearing." Judge Salinas smirked slightly. "Then proceed, counselor." For the next 45 minutes, Malik laid out his argument with surgical precision. The case involved a single mother who had been illegally evicted by a real estate group using false documentation. Malik's voice never rose, but every word carried weight. "This isn't just about one tenant," he said, locking eyes with the judge and jury. "This is about the pattern, how communities of color are exploited under the assumption that no one will stand up for them." He pointed to the stack of documents. "And today, Your Honor, someone is standing up." The courtroom was silent. No one dared interrupt him. Even the opposing counsel's confidence seemed to shrink with every point Malik delivered. When the session ended, Judge Salinas leaned back and looked down from the bench. "Mr. Carter, the court appreciates your passion and your thorough work. I'll review the evidence and rule shortly." As Malik packed his papers, people in the gallery approached to shake his hand. Reporters scribbled notes. The same man who had been handcuffed on the sidewalk just hours earlier now stood at the center of attention. Not because of what was done to him, but because of what he chose to do in response. As he exited the courtroom, Jordan caught up to him. "You turned it around," he said, "from a jail cell to commanding the courtroom. Man, you're a beast." Malik gave a small smile. "It's not about turning things around. It's about never letting anyone define you, even for a moment." He paused. "But now I fight back. Not just for me, but for every man who doesn't get the chance to explain who he is before they slap the cuffs on." That night, Malik sat alone in his apartment, the city lights glowing outside the window. His phone buzzed with media requests. Clips of his courtroom performance were already circulating on social media. News outlets were running the headline, "Attorney wrongfully arrested, then wins major case hours later." But Malik wasn't interested in fame. What he wanted was change. He opened his laptop and began writing. He crafted a powerful open letter titled, "What They Didn't See When They Looked at Me." In it, he detailed the arrest, the humiliation, and the silence he kept, not out of fear, but out of purpose. They didn't see the Harvard degree. They didn't see the legal victories. They didn't see the man who mentors kids on weekends or defends the voiceless in court. They saw my skin. That was enough. He posted the letter to his social media and turned off the lights. By morning, it had gone viral. When Malik Carter clicked post on his open letter titled, "What They Didn't See When They Looked at Me," he thought it might catch the attention of a few friends, maybe some colleagues, perhaps those who followed his legal activism. He never expected what came next. By 8 a.m., the post had reached over 100,000 shares. By noon, it had been quoted by national news anchors, reposted by civil rights organizations, and picked up by major publications. By nightfall, Malik's inbox was flooded with speaking requests, news interviews, and even a call from the mayor's office. But Malik didn't care about the spotlight. He wasn't trying to go viral. He was trying to create impact. Because that arrest wasn't just a personal insult. It was a reminder that every black man, no matter how successful, educated, or well-dressed, was still a target in a broken system. Across town, at the same police station where Malik had been wrongly detained, the heat was rising. The Internal Affairs Division had received multiple formal complaints. Videos of the arrest had surfaced online. One in particular showed Malik calmly explaining who he was while the officers ignored him and slapped on the cuffs anyway. Even the local news ran a segment titled, "How Did They Miss the Harvard Law Degree?" Within the department, tensions rose. The officers involved, Officer Keller and Officer Daniels, were summoned for questioning. "I swear we thought he matched the description," Keller insisted. "You thought, or you assumed?" the IA officer asked, flipping through the printed screenshots of Malik's credentials. "Because the moment he offered to show you his ID, you should verify it. He was standing near the store where, and walking while black is not a crime," the investigator snapped. "We'll be reviewing body cam footage next." Meanwhile, Malik was back in his office, seated in his glass-walled corner room, wearing a charcoal gray suit. His assistant, Jordan, entered with 2 coffees and a printout. Malik, this came in through the firm's public inbox. You've got to read it. Malik took the paper and scanned it. It was a letter from a 16-year-old named Trevin from Detroit. Mr. Carter, I saw your video. I never thought people like you existed. I thought no matter how smart I got, I'd always be treated like a criminal. But you showed me I can be more. You made me want to become a lawyer too. Malik stared at the words in silence. He folded the paper and placed it in his drawer beside his late father's watch. That's why we fight, he murmured. Also, Jordan said, you've got CNN, MSNBC, and Oprah's team all asking for interviews. Malik chuckled. Tell Oprah I'll think about it. Jordan smiled, but then turned serious. You sure you want to go public with the lawsuit? I'm not doing this for me, Malik replied. I'm doing it for the kid who won't survive the arrest, the one who won't have a courtroom to walk into. Later that week, Malik stood at a press conference outside the courthouse. Cameras flashed. Microphones crowded in front of his face. Civil rights leaders stood behind him. Activists, clergy, former clients. He took a breath and looked directly into the cameras. 3 days ago, I was handcuffed for walking down the street, carrying a coffee and a briefcase. No weapon, no threat, just the wrong skin tone. He paused, letting the silence linger. And today, I'm filing a lawsuit against the Chicago Police Department for racial profiling, unlawful detention, and civil rights violations. Not just for me. For every person who's ever been judged before they were heard. Applause erupted. Malik didn't smile. He wasn't there for claps. He was there to change something. Back at the station, the police chief, a white man named Chief Lambert, watched the press conference from his office. He rubbed his temples. A storm was coming. One of his deputies entered. Sir, there's pressure from the city council and the mayor's office. They want to suspend the 2 officers immediately. Lambert nodded slowly. And they should be. We failed. The deputy hesitated. Do you want to reach out to Carter directly? Lambert paused, then said firmly, no. He deserves better than a PR apology. He deserves systemic change. That night, Malik sat in his modest apartment once again, watching the coverage on the news. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from someone unexpected, his mother. Baby, I saw you on TV, she said, her voice warm but heavy with emotion. Hey, Mama. You made me proud, Malik. But I also hate that you had to go through that. I know, he replied softly. I still remember when you were 8, and I told you to put your hands up if the police ever stopped you. I never wanted that day to come. But it did. There was silence between them. Then she said, but you turned it into power. That's what your daddy would have done. Malik smiled. The city of Chicago had seen protests before, but this one was different. Hundreds of people stood outside the city hall, holding signs that read, I am Malik. Suit and tie still profiled. Justice has no skin color. At the center of it all was Malik Carter, not with a megaphone, not shouting, but standing quietly among the crowd, his presence speaking louder than any chant. Malik wasn't an activist by trade. He was a lawyer, a thinker, a strategist. But injustice had knocked on his own door now, forcefully, publicly, and unapologetically. And this time, he wasn't walking away quietly. Inside City Hall, the mayor, a sharp woman named Elena Vasquez, paced her office, clutching a copy of the Tribune with the headline, Lawyer arrested for walking while black. Now he's leading a movement. Her chief of staff, Darnell, stepped in. Mayor, the city council's demanding a statement. The press is outside. And Carter's letter just hit 1 million shares. Vasquez sighed. We can't stay silent. Not on this. I agree. But Carter doesn't want just words. He's coming for change. Policy change. And he should, Vasquez said. The problem isn't just the officers. It's the system that lets them act without consequences. Darnell nodded. Then let's be part of fixing it. She looked out the window at the crowd gathering below. Set up a meeting with him. And clear my calendar. At Carter and Wells law firm, Malik sat at the long boardroom table, surrounded by his partners. Some were nervous. Others were skeptical. We understand you're upset, Malik, said Greg Wells, the firm's senior partner. But a public lawsuit against the city, that could make us political. It could cost us clients. Malik raised an eyebrow. Greg, you're not listening. This is political, whether we like it or not. If we choose silence now, What do we stand for? Another partner, Elaine, spoke softly. You've already become a symbol, Malik. People see you as a voice for them. That comes with pressure. I didn't ask to be a symbol, Malik replied, but I won't ignore it either. He stood up and faced the room. Let me be clear. I'm not asking for permission. I'm informing you. I will see this lawsuit through. If that makes you uncomfortable, I understand. Greg folded his hands. Do what you have to do. But know that this firm stands by the law, not headlines. Malik gave a small nod. Good. Then we're on the same side. The meeting with the mayor. A few days later, Malik walked into the mayor's private chamber, flanked by two aides. The room was tense. Cameras were not allowed. This was a closed-door conversation. Mayor Vasquez stood and extended her hand. Mr. Carter, thank you for coming. Malik shook it, firm and calm. Thank you for reaching out. They sat. I won't waste your time, Vasquez began. What happened to you was unjust, and the city needs to answer for it. Malik nodded. Words are a start, but they won't stop the next man from being handcuffed on the sidewalk. I agree, she said. That's why I want to propose a joint reform initiative. Body cam accountability, implicit bias training, a civilian review board for complaints, and mandatory identification checks before detainment, especially in minority communities. Malik leaned back slightly. It's a beginning. Vasquez raised an eyebrow. You want more? I want every officer to remember that behind every black man they stop might be a father, a teacher, a veteran, or a lawyer who knows the Constitution better than they do. The mayor paused. We need you, Malik, not just as a plaintiff, as a leader. The call from the past. That evening, Malik received a call from an unfamiliar number. Hello. A deep voice responded, Malik. It's Judge Howard James. You probably don't remember me, but I remember you. Malik sat up straighter. Judge James was a legend, a black federal judge who'd quietly paved the way for many lawyers of color. I saw what happened to you, James said, and how you're handling it. With dignity, with force. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm just trying to do the right thing. Malik, the right thing isn't always the easy thing. I was the first black judge in this district. And let me tell you, change doesn't come by request. It comes by pressure. Malik was silent. I've arranged a private meeting, Judge James continued. You'll be sitting with civil rights leaders from across the country. They want to back you. Not just for the lawsuit, for something bigger. Malik frowned. Bigger? You'll see, the judge said. Be at the Roosevelt Center on Saturday. Saturday. The Roosevelt gathering. The Roosevelt Center wasn't publicized. No media, no reporters. Just a quiet grand hall filled with a who's who of black excellence. Lawyers, senators, educators, activists. Malik entered, unsure of what to expect. At the front stood Judge James, smiling. He opened the meeting. Everyone here has faced the sting of injustice, but we also carry the power of influence. And today we propose something new, a nationwide coalition, the Justice Circle, led by voices like Malik's, to hold systems accountable and push for real policy reform. The crowd erupted in applause. Malik stood stunned. You want me to lead it? He asked. No, Judge James said. We need you to. The room was quiet now. The applause from the Roosevelt Center still echoed in Malik's ears as he sat in his car, parked under the gray Chicago skyline. His fingers rested lightly on the steering wheel, his mind swirling with one question. Am I ready to leave a national movement? He hadn't asked for this. He hadn't planned for any of it. But somehow, life had handed him the microphone. And the whole country was listening. A voice message buzzed on his phone. It was from Trevin, the teenager who'd written him earlier. Hey, Mr. Carter, I told my teacher I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer like you. She said I should start a justice club at school. So I did. We had 5 kids on the first day. We're reading your letter together. Malik exhaled slowly. That was it. The reason. The why. This wasn't about him anymore. Back at Carter and Wells' law firm, tension stirred. Greg Wells, senior partner, paced inside the private boardroom while other partners debated in low voices. Malik's making headlines again, one murmured, holding up a printout of the Washington Post's latest feature, From Arrest to Action, the lawyer leading the justice reformation. We didn't sign up to be an activist firm, another partner said. We represent corporations. This is going to scare clients away. Elaine, a quiet but sharp attorney and longtime supporter of Malik, spoke up. Or it'll bring us better ones, clients who care about integrity. Greg sighed. We either support his cause or we distance the firm from it entirely. A heavy silence fell. Meanwhile, Malik had bigger plans. The Justice Circle was no longer just an idea. It was now becoming a national organization. Within weeks, chapters were forming in Los Angeles, Atlanta, D.C., Detroit, and New Orleans. Law students signed up in droves. Retired judges, civil rights leaders, and nonprofit CEOs pledged their support. The mission was clear: expose racial bias in policing, provide free legal aid to victims of injustice, push for state and federal legislation that prevents racial profiling, train the next generation of black lawyers and leaders. Malik became the movement's reluctant but determined face, but he made it clear: this isn't about making me famous. This is about making justice normal. The lawsuit begins. The first court date for Malik's lawsuit against the city was set. Media vans lined the street outside the courthouse. Protesters and supporters filled the sidewalks. Inside, Malik sat at the plaintiff's table, alone but composed. Across from him were 4 lawyers representing the city of Chicago, the police department, and the officers involved. His lawyer leaned in. They want to settle, quietly, with a large payout. Malik stared straight ahead. What's the condition? They'll admit the incident happened, but no fault, no public apology. Malik's jaw tightened. Then no deal. But Malik, the lawyer warned, going to trial will be long, public, ugly. Good, Malik replied. Let the whole world see the dirt we've hidden under the city's carpet. Later that day, a storm was building inside the city's police department. Internal Affairs had finished reviewing the body cam footage. What it revealed was worse than anyone expected. Officer Keller had not only ignored Malik's ID, but had made a sarcastic remark captured on camera. Let's see how Harvard he feels in cuffs. The footage went public. The backlash was immediate. City officials rushed to hold a press conference. Mayor Vasquez stood at the podium beside Malik and announced that both officers had been suspended pending disciplinary review and retraining. She looked at the cameras. We can't undo what happened, but we can ensure it doesn't happen again. Malik spoke. Next. This isn't a victory. It's a start. True justice isn't an apology. It's a system that prevents the need for one. Newsrooms, classrooms, living rooms across the country, Malik's story was now being taught in law schools as a case study in civil rights and modern advocacy. A short documentary, Profiled, The Arrest That Sparked a Movement, was produced by a major network. More importantly, everyday people began to find their voices. A teacher in Street Louis posted, after showing my 7th graders Malik's story, 2 of my black students told me it was the first time they'd seen someone who looked like them win against the system. A retired police officer in Baltimore wrote, this story forced me to confront my own bias. I was part of the problem. Now I want to be part of the solution. One evening, Malik visited his father's old neighborhood, the same place where he'd once been stopped at 15, searched without reason, and told to be careful where you walk, boy. That memory had lived with him for years. He stood by the chain-link fence near the basketball courts where it happened and watched a group of kids play. One of the boys recognized him. You that lawyer guy, right? From the news? Malik smiled. Yeah, that's me. The boy nodded, bounced his ball once, and said, my mama said you were a real superhero. She said you wear a suit, not a cape. Malik chuckled. Tell your mama I said thank you. Then the boy asked, can I be like you someday? Malik crouched down, looked him in the eyes, and said, you can be better than me. The courtroom was packed. It wasn't just a legal proceeding anymore. It was a reckoning. Journalists from CNN, BBC, and the New York Times lined the gallery. College students held up Justice for Malik signs outside. Retired judges, civil rights icons, and even celebrities watched from the back rows. Malik Carter sat at the plaintiff's table, calm, silent, focused. He had spent years defending others. Now he was defending something even greater, the principle that no man should be judged before he's heard. Across from him sat a sea of city attorneys, PR advisors, and political representatives. But Malik had something they didn't: truth, experience, and a voice that now echoed across America. The cross-examination, the courtroom fell quiet as Officer Daniels took the stand. He shifted uncomfortably in his uniform, trying to maintain composure as Malik's attorney began. Officer Daniels, were you aware of Mr. Carter's identity during the arrest? No, he replied, but you had the opportunity to confirm it, correct? Daniels hesitated. Yes, but... No further questions, the lawyer cut in. handing the floor over to Malik himself. The judge allowed it. Malik rose and approached slowly, his hands behind his back, like the morning he was arrested. "Officer Daniels," he began, his voice steady, "do you remember what you said to me that morning?" Daniels looked down. "No, I don't." Malik nodded. "I do. You told me to stop acting like I was above the law." He stepped closer. "But I wasn't above the law that day, officer. I was beneath it. You looked at me and saw a threat, not a man, not a lawyer, not a human being." Daniels looked away. Malik turned to the jury. "I don't want your sympathy. I want your conscience. Because what happened to me wasn't rare. It was normal. And that's the problem." Later that night, after court adjourned for the day, Malik sat in a quiet jazz cafe on the south side. His face was on every screen across the country. But here, he could breathe. An older man in a tan hat approached him slowly. His eyes were deep and wise. "You don't know me," the man said, "but I marched with Dr. King." Malik stood and shook his hand. "My name's Percy Lawson. I've been watching your story. And I just want to say, thank you. We passed the torch, son, and you're carrying it with fire." Malik was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Sometimes the way of the torch burns." Percy smiled. "That means you're holding it right." Back at Carter and Wells, the law firm was buzzing, not with lawsuits or corporate deals, but with purpose. Elaine had converted the conference room into a hub for the Justice Circle, where young interns, law students, and even former prosecutors now collaborated on real reforms. New policies were being drafted. Legal clinics were opening in underrepresented neighborhoods. Partnerships with HBCUs and community colleges were growing. Greg Wells, once unsure, now stood beside Malik during every public event. "I was wrong," Greg admitted during one press interview. Malik reminded us what the law is supposed to stand for. The firm had evolved. No longer just a place of litigation, but of liberation. Breaking news. U.S. Senator Julia Thompson introduces a federal bill named the Malik-Carter Law Enforcement Accountability Act. The proposed legislation aimed to ban racial profiling at the federal level, mandate ID confirmation before detainment, increase penalties for false arrest, expand federal funding for bodycam transparency. Malik was invited to Washington to speak before Congress. And he did, boldly. He stood at the podium in a Navy suit, looking out at lawmakers, lobbyists, and the nation. "I'm not here to beg. I'm here to remind you, justice isn't a luxury for the privileged. It's a right for every American, regardless of skin." Applause filled the chamber. Some rose to their feet, but the battle wasn't over. The officers who arrested Malik filed a countersuit, claiming emotional distress, alleging they had been targeted and publicly humiliated. Malik's response: "I don't need to humiliate anyone to win. I just need the truth to walk freely." The court dismissed their claim, but it was a reminder, even truth is met with resistance. One more visit, Malik returned to the police station, the same one where he was wrongfully held. But this time, it wasn't in handcuffs. It was with the mayor, activists, and police reform leaders. They unveiled a new wing inside the station, the Integrity Training Center, designed to retrain officers in community engagement, racial bias awareness, and constitutional rights. And on the front wall, a mural was painted, Malik Carter standing, handcuffed, beside the words, "See me, not just my skin." A young black officer approached Malik after the ribbon cutting. "I joined because of you, sir. I want to protect everyone the right way." Malik placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. "Then wear your badge like a mirror, not a shield." It had been 6 months. 6 long, turbulent, transformative months since Malik Carter was handcuffed for simply walking down the street with a coffee in one hand and a Harvard-educated mind in the other. Now it all came down to this moment. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Every seat was filled. Every corridor outside overflowed with supporters, activists, press, students, and even police officers who now stood on the side of change. Judge Lillian Monroe, a woman known for her fairness and grit, entered the courtroom. The chatter died. "All rise." Malik stood, buttoning his dark navy blazer. His face was calm, but his hands trembled slightly behind the podium. Not with fear, but with the weight of possibility. Judge Monroe adjusted her glasses, cleared her throat, and began. The verdict, after reviewing the evidence presented, including bodycam footage, witness statements, and testimony from both parties. She paused. The room held its breath. "This court finds in favor of Mr. Malik Carter." Gasps, tears. Applause erupted, but were quickly silenced by the gavel. Judge Monroe continued, "This court further acknowledges that Mr. Carter's constitutional rights were violated. His wrongful detainment was a direct result of racial bias and failure to uphold legal protocol." The courtroom exploded in emotion. Some wept, others cheered. Reporters scrambled to send headlines. Malik closed his eyes, not in triumph, but in relief. He wasn't just vindicated, he was validated. Outside the courthouse, the steps were packed with supporters. Banners waved in the air. Malik won. Justice has a new name. Carter's law is coming. Malik stepped up to the microphones, this time not as a victim, but as a victor. He looked out over the sea of faces, young and old, black and white, lawyers and laborers. "I didn't win this alone," he began. "I stand here because of every soul who refused to be silent. This isn't just my victory. It's a message to every kid who's ever been profiled, every woman who's ever been silenced, every man who's ever been told he's not enough." He raised his voice slightly. "Justice is not a moment. It's a movement, and this movement is just getting started." That night, the country reacts. The White House released a statement. Malik Carter's courage reflects the best of what the legal system can become. His efforts mark a turning point.